Hey guys, I wanted to share my 4th gen 4Runner build today. I've had the truck for a couple of years now and figured it was at a good place in its development to share what I've done so far and some of the lessons I've learned. And hopefully, if any of my lessons can help you in building your off-road vehicle, I hope it helps. So the truck's a 2003 V6 4-wheel drive, and I got it from a friend who picked it up at an auction with some damage to the passenger rear door. And so we had to cut out a section of the quarter panel and replace it with one from another 4Runner and also replace the door. But beyond that, the truck's been great. There wasn't any damage to the frame or suspension, so got a really good deal and got a truck with low miles. This truck came with 65,000 miles from a single owner, and they had all their dealer records of service and everything. So beyond the damage from its one accident, it's been a great platform to build. The suspension I went with are all Dobinson's components, and I did a little bit of mix and matching, but I'll kind of go through it from front to back. I went with the Dobinson's twin tube extended travel shocks in the front with Dobinson springs, and I went with Freedom Off-Road upper control arms just to save some money. I was a little skeptical on them at first, but they do correct camber for lift and bigger tires, and they're about half the price of some of their competition. So I was impressed with them. They're holding up great. They do have a dust cover on top of the ball joint with a Zerk fitting that you can grease that upper ball joint, so they're easily serviceable. I think the one thing I would do differently with them would be, if I was putting these in from the beginning, I'd replace the rubber bushings that come with them with some poly bushings. Just the rubber bushings are a little stiff and noisy when you're breaking them in. But other than that, I've been happy with them. The lower control arms are stock. I just replaced the bushings with white line bushings just to refresh them and bring everything up to date. Replaced the lower ball joint as well with Moog with the Zerk fitting that you can grease and service them. Still running stock tie rods, still running the front sway bar, and I'm able to clear the 35s with this setup, and I don't have any rubbing on any of the suspension components, except when I have snow chains on. I do rub on that front sway bar just a little bit, but running this custom bumper that I built, it's just some 1.5-inch Dom tubing to house the winch, which I went with the Badlands winch from Harbor Freight, and I was a little skeptical about that at first, but it's held up really well. It's taken whatever I can throw at it, and I was really impressed with it for its price. The one thing I'd recommend is swapping out the steel cable that comes with it with a synthetic winch line, but other than that, it's held up great. I'm running an 1.5-inch body lift from 4Crawler Off-Road as well, and I'm also running a radiator drop bracket and a steering shaft extension just to correct some of the geometry from the lift. I also have a body mount chop done in the front just to help clear the 35s, and I really recommend doing that if you're going to be fitting larger tires on your 4th gen, to just do it early on, and it will really set you up for success down the road and eliminate a lot of rubbing issues. And it also reduces the amount of lift that you need to clear larger tires. It's pretty easy to do if you have the welding skills or a friend with a welder and some shop space to do it. Moving on to the setup in the rear, I'm running Dobinson's IMS long travel shocks along with their heavier springs. These shocks are basically the MRR shocks but without the external reservoir. I'm also running a Panhard bar from Front Range Off-Road, and I'm still on stock upper and lower control arms. I've got extended brake lines and DuraBump bump stops, and other than that, that's pretty much all I've done in the rear so far. I've got gears and lockers in the near future. The setup's been great so far. Having the extra down travel has been awesome, just helps keep me planted. And I did have to remove the rear sway bar because at full droop I was rubbing on the drive shaft, but with the heavier shocks and springs I really don't notice it, and it still has great on-road manners, still drives great on the highway. So the setup's been great for me for the last couple of years. The rear bumper setup is from Coastal Off-Road. I got their flat plate kit and welded everything together myself, And it's been awesome being able to carry a full-size spare and extra gas or water. I think the one thing I would do differently if I was to do it all over again would be to take some of the money that I saved from welding it together myself and have it professionally powder coated, because as best of a job as I tried to do finishing it with spray paint, I'm starting to get some rust prematurely coming through. So I think if you're going to go for a kit like this, I would recommend spending a little bit extra and getting it professionally finished. For wheels and tires, I'm still on the factory Toyota 17-inch wheels, and I am running 1.25-inch wheel spacers because without them, I would be rubbing on the spindle and upper control arm. So if you're planning on going 33s or 35s on your 4Runner and you're still on stock wheels, you can do it, and you can do it reliably, but you are going to need some wheel spacers just to push those away from the spindle. As far as brakes, I am running StopTech drilled and slotted rotors with StopTech severe duty pads, and I really recommend upgrading your pads and rotors if you're going to run bigger tires or start putting on different bumpers and things like that, just to help stop the extra weight. I'm on a set of Falcon Wild Peak AT3Ws in 315/70/17, and I swapped over to these from Yokohama Geolanders just because of where I live in Eastern Washington. We get a lot of snow and ice, and while those tires were excellent for 90% of the year, in icy conditions, they really don't hold up very well, and they're a little too stiff. The table was something I put together myself and welded onto the back of the swing arm. It's been great just to have a surface to set up my kitchen on while I'm camping. I can stow it out of the way. I put this drawer system together myself just out of some plywood, and when you fold the seats down, the shelf will slide forward and turns into a sleeping platform that you can roll out a queen-size memory foam mattress on. And this has been really comfortable. I've spent a ton of nights camped out in this thing, and it's great when you're out in the desert and the wind's howling and you can be, locked into your vehicle and not getting blown around in a tent. So I know a lot of people go with the rooftop tents, but I really like this setup. Drawers have been great just to keep everything organized, and I like to keep recovery gear off on the one side and then tools and some spare parts on the other. And I may do something different with this in the future, but for right now, this was simple and cheap and has served me really well. That about covers everything with the 4Runner as it sits right now. I've got some exciting projects that I'm working on, including a custom roof rack and a second battery setup, as well as onboard air. So I'll be sharing all those projects with you guys as they come together, and just looking forward to expanding my capability off-road and being able to stay out longer. So I'd love to hear what you guys are working on this year and what you've got planned. And if you want to see the continued evolution of this thing, please subscribe and follow along for updates. Thanks for watching, guys. Until next time.